Be brought in with fanfare, okay?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wade and Carter Show. Wendy Hughes Garcia, Greg Garcia, Scott Tomko on the podium this morning. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for tuning in. Glad you're all here. Hope everything is good this morning. Hope you can hear me. Ash Brent live from the Atson studio, as we are every single morning, and lots to get to, including a tropical storm in the Gulf. So let's get rolling. Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the great folks at AT Deerland Hayfeed and Ranch Services for all you need. Stop on by, see Jackie and the gang. They'll hook you up with everything you need for your yard, your pets, your animals, your gardens, your lawn. They can do it all.
The folks at Deerland Feed want you to know it's 77 degrees under sunny skies in Victoria, Texas, heading to a high today of 96. The only at 10 a.m. and at 3 p.m. are the only differences from yesterday when it was just straight sun all the way across. Now there's two little partly cloudy things. Ash, two things. It is funny because we were just talking. We've been visiting with Ash this morning since 6:30, and it never crossed my mind to tell you this, but just because you should know, I'll share with you that, Lake Travis, 680 feet, it's full. Lake Travis is full. Canyon Lake, really for the first time in my memory, is full. Now, I realize I'm wrong. Canyon Lake was probably full 10 years ago. But every time you see a picture of Canyon Lake, you see the green belt and then all the white rock, and then the water. There's no white rock. It is full to the top of the dam. Projections now showing that within a week, Choke Canyon, which had been down to 8%. The last time I was in Three Rivers, I drove out to Choke Canyon, and I told you, it's like Chernobyl. Like there's nobody manning the park booth. You can just drive in. The grass hasn't been mowed. It's like, except for the fact that there's a huge lake out there, it's been abandoned. And because there's no reason to go. There's nowhere to launch a boat. There's nothing. And people were camping out with tents on the lake bed, I guess, so they could walk to where the water remaining 8% is, because it's a huge bass fishing lake. And they're saying now that by the end of the week, that lake could be at 50%. Give you some perspective. The Pedernales Falls State Park, there's a place there where people float the river and do all of that. That typically flows at 250 cubic feet per second. Now, I have no idea what that measurement means except as a relative figure. 250 cubic feet per second. I do have an answer for you. Niagara Falls, by comparison, flows at 180,000 cubic feet per second. That's how much water goes over. You can see Niagara Falls in your head. The multiple fall points is 180,000 cubic feet per second. Pedernales Falls State Park, 250 per second. Yesterday, Pedernales Falls was flowing at 90,000 cubic feet per second.
Wow.
Half the water that goes over the immense Niagara Falls was going through Pedernales Falls State Park yesterday. So I caution folks to get too excited about climate change. And it's the first time Lake Travis has been full in 7 whole years. We're in the middle of the worst man-made drought ever. No, we're not. You prayed for it. You got the rain. Now shut up and take it. So
And we're probably going to get more because Tropical Storm Bertha is sitting in the Gulf, and it looks like it's heading. It looks like it'll cross Louisiana and then re-enter the Gulf and then make landfall around. This is the current National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center forecast. Then re-enter or enter Texas around Beaumont, and then start making a north turn. It looks like Victoria is going to be on the very south end of the cone of shame, but Central Texas and the Dallas area looks like they're going to catch the brunt of this. We might see a little rain from it, but right now it doesn't look like we're going to see much of anything in the Victoria area. So that's good news.
It's kind of shaping up to be like the tropical storm that turned into Hurricane Harvey. Is that what you're telling me? It'll be no big deal. There's nothing to be alarmed about. We're going to get a little rain. Yeah.
The opposite.
Cody is here, and we love having the commander here, but he just – can you imagine like if Cody was a sous chef? He's kind of like that guy. You know that guy that plays the doctor? He's the Dr. Phil type character on the Progressive commercials. That's like, I can't stop you from turning into your parents. And Cody's always fritzing around over here. Folks, feel free to give me some feedback. If the sound doesn't sound equitable, if Ash and I don't sound like we're standing next to each other, let me know. You mentioned Wendy Hughes Garcia, Greg Garcia. I'll throw in Scott Tomko, Marvin Mickus Jr., Renee Shear, hello, friend, Tammy Keeling, Mark Kurtz, Patrick Strauss, Stephanie Conti, Linda Christ, Bobby Leister, Ricky Champagne King. Stephanie's there, Brent Anderson, Heather Stewart. There's our own Junior. There's Torrin Bales. Hello,
Marina.
Zed Stewart, Junior Samples with Minutia. Well, he's in top form on a Tuesday morning. No, he does say Lake Corpus Christi still needs more water. It will get that water. That's the Frio, I think, that feeds that direction, and the Concan area and all that just inundated with water. There's Lisa Poole.
Scott says Texana is full. And Stephanie says the sound is good. So good.
I did not know, Mark, no disagreement, but did not know Texana was full. I drove over it this weekend, and there was still like, when you're going over Texana on the way to Edna or post Edna, you are a little bit on the north end. You are on the north end of the lake where San Jacinto, is it San Jacinto? One of those rivers feeds into Texana. And I think it's both of them actually feed into Texana. And there was still a lot of green out there, but it was dry for so long, Ash, that some of the whatever you want to call it, forage, whatever the weeds had grown up tall enough that maybe that water is usually only a foot deep, but it looks like water. And now it's, the numbers were staggering the other day. And I think
the people who gave up their houses when they filled it returned. It had been so dry for so long.
Right. They just had to sweep the drive and they were back in.
They went back to homesteading.
But we talked about the other day, this is a fascinating concept. Lake Travis has like 1,130,000 acre feet of water. So picture this. If you took all the water out of Lake Travis when it's full, no, not even when it's full. If you took all the water out of Lake Travis, it would cover the King Ranch as you envision it. The King Ranch, the 1 million acres inside one fence, basically South Texas. Lake Travis, Ash, would cover that area a foot deep. That's an acre foot. So you could put a foot of water on the entire King Ranch. Now listen to this stat. Last weekend, Lake Travis was deepening by an inch every 10 minutes. So in an hour, it was 6 inches deeper. In 2 hours, you could double the amount of water on that King Ranch. Think about that. You could
Getting
add
some water finally.
acre foot to the ranch. That's crazy. If you stood out there for 2 hours, it would go from being a foot deep to 2 foot deep. That's how much water was coming in to King Ranch. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. There you go.
So-
Linda Chris points out, instead of a return to normal, the left has us facing the end of the world. The climate weather will change. It will be abnormal if it didn't. You know, Buchanan Anderson says, Brent Anderson says, Lake Buchanan is at 100%. It's at the top of the Highland Lakes, filling Inks, LBJ, Marble Falls, Lake Travis, Austin, and Ladybird. Now, what that does mean is if it rains up that direction again, coming off this tropical storm, that water's got to be sent downstream. And I guess, I mean, pardon my ignorance, which I think you kind of have to do every day to be enjoying the show. Isn't that what feeds into the Guadalupe ultimately? I mean, won't that water ultimately have to come to, or is that the Colorado River chain? I guess
I think that goes the other way. Yeah, a little further
How did we
west.
get it to Corpus?
it'll get it to Corpus. So, I
Yep.
mean, in that regard, I say pray for rain, right? Yeah.
And Texas will get some from this. I just don't know that Victoria is going to get a lot of anything from this. The way the National Weather Service is predicting this thing going. So we'll see.
How about our friend Lisa Poole? That's interesting. Where did you find that info? I'd like to read and share. You don't have to read it. I just told you. But at the end of the day, I didn't.
Why are you trying to make work for yourself, Lisa?
Right. Don't do it.
Just
Just listen.
did it. That's all you
Listen
need.
quietly and make notes. You know, like, those people that go to church, and here's what I've observed. When you go to church, those people that are always making notes, they're always making feverish notes. They're writing feverishly. They hardly ever adhere to what they write. They just
They're the
they
least
write it.
Christian people I've
Yeah.
known. Yes.
Yeah, they write. So I wonder how many people, and I am thinking of Lisa Poole here. I wonder how many people daily have like their Wade and Carter notebook. They keep little notes. Like Brent Anderson probably draws little caricatures, or he tries to alphabetize his alphabets, in the morning, something. But there's Andrew Alvarez checking in. Oh, Lisa Poole. Lisa Poole comes in. Seriously, Brent, no need to be rude. You sound
Just
like
teasing, Lisa.
you sound like some of the other insecure folks on this program, Lisa, and you know better. No soup for you. 2 weeks.
No soup for you.
No soup. Soup Nazi. I tell you what,
So,
let's do.
Take a break.
No, I was kind of thinking that was a natural segue, but let's go on. Press on.
The left and their climate change adherence, and I'm struggling for the right word, but on the flip side, they are as obtuse and trying to dismiss the information that President Trump released last week in talking about China. And I want to tell you some stuff that, and here's why the media never dives into these things anymore. The mainstream media won't go through the emails and the treasure trove of information that Donald Trump released last week, or the Trump administration released last week, in relation to the 2020 election and China's interference, because you've got people like Catherine Harridge, doing the work for the media. And they're so lazy. She went through that stuff. She dug up an email where the sender's name is redacted. It's dated November 20th, 2020. So this is just after the election in 2020.
Right.
But the author is a strategic intelligence analyst who was working on, whose specialty was China and North Korea. And in the email, it says, and I'll quote the email, "We have deliberately messaged our one pending PDB, which is President's Daily Brief, to avoid any direct links to the election." They were keeping this information from the president, and the President's Daily Brief is to give him the unvarnished truth so he can make decisions. Our own intelligence agencies were keeping this from the President of the United States.
Who at that time was still Trump?
It was still Trump. This was 3 weeks after the election.
Okay.
They knew China had influenced the election and had shaped the election.
You know, it's a very complicated issue, and you and I break it down as, well, we need the SAVE Act, and we need one person, one vote. We need only living people to vote. I saw a deal the other day, and I don't know if it was accurate. You hear so much information. I saw a deal that said that in the 2020 election that there were like 133 million registered voters in the U.S. Well, that number's got to be low. Cody, I need registered voters for 2020 election. 133 million voters is what this particular article said. And you just do the math, right? Trump got 74 million, Biden got 81 million. That's 155 million people. And we know that we never have 100% turnout to begin with. This is 100% plus if that number is remotely accurate. So you find yourself going somewhere in there. Maybe Trump is so upset because they both stuffed the ballot boxes, and Biden just did a better job. However,
55 million turned out to vote for 2020 presidential election.
That's how many turned out to vote, but how many were registered? How many registered voters existed in 2020? And if you look at it that way, and when we've gone back and we've posted the chart before where Obama, arguably, I'm not saying deservedly, but the most popular president maybe in decades, twice was elected with never more than 77 million votes. Trump had 76. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's Joe Biden. Joe Biden, remember that everybody hated, that got booed off the stage from his plagiarizing and his lying about his law school prowess and talking about corn pop. And then this fool ends up with 81 million votes. I just don't believe it. I still don't believe it. I don't believe it happened.
Well, what Heritage points out in her reporting is that they didn't see China deliberate or going in and altering the vote tallies or changing votes on the machinery, but they spent a lot of money trying to influence voters, low IQ voters.
We have a lot of
the voters that shouldn't be voting, the ones who aren't educated and don't go in and understand what's going on. But she also says in her report that they hacked the data of more than 220 million American voters. Obviously, this is probably dead people and those who currently vote. But she says that China can combine the voting records with all of the other stuff they've stolen over the years, stolen security clearance files, the health data, that it opens the door to voter registration fraud. Absolutely. I can see that. Identity theft, which we know they're doing.
Right.
And potential recruitment of future spies for them if they find the right combination of voting records, security clearance in Washington, D.C. or other states. She says that some of the intelligence documents that were released were written by hand.
Right.
So
we've just
they did not want Trump to win re-election. Not only China, but our own intelligence community.
No,
there was an effort underneath to avoid Trump serving back-to-back terms. And it's probably a good thing because I don't know that all of this would be being released right now. And the lack of outrage by people in this country amazes me.
If you take your free election,
Watergate look like
amen, 100%,
a birthday party.
So many things do. Namely, the Clinton administration makes Watergate look like a birthday party. But when you go through and focus on the fact that one of the things that makes a democratic republic work is a secure and fair and honest election. John Anderson asks, what's the biggest lake in Texas? That would be Toledo Bend. Kathleen Leiniger says, climate change is only a selective concern. Interesting how there's no concern about sudden panic to throw up all these AI centers, AI data centers with unknown, unexplored technology and water resources being exploited. It's crickets from the Environmental Climate Change Police. That's because the AI data centers, and I put a slash there, a hash there. AI is part of the data center equation, but the data centers run things like your weather app on your phone, your Uber app. These things all rely on and demand data centers. They take lots and lots of energy. Your Waze app, you don't think it's free or without issue that you get on a traffic app and you're driving, it says car reported on shoulder half a mile ahead. That is all being driven by data centers. And that's one reason I say, hey, it's coming, and I've had a conversation with our state rep, House District 30, Sheriff AJ Louderback, and he's got people, you and I have talked about that these data centers are coming. You need to embrace them because somewhere in there's got to be a buck to be made. So you've got to kind of find a balance of how to do it. There are some folks in, say, Matagorda County over closer to Bay City ardently opposed to these data centers because current legislation allows them to be, say, within 500 feet of a neighborhood. And they're saying the noise is so extreme and yada, yada, yada. One thing to remember is the technology is getting better and better and better all the time. And that technology then requires more and more energy. So part of the process is, do we require the data centers to bring their own energy? And if the answer is yes, I mean, what better place than you're right next to the South Texas nuclear project. But there are people, like I think the majority of, say, maybe Victorians, I don't know, that are for the data centers. If there's a way to make $1 off of it, if it'll help our economy, let's find a way to accommodate them.
Well, the same people that seem to be against them have no problem spending your tax dollar on every other pet project, and they seem to be against anything that will expand the tax base here. And the problem is Victoria hasn't grown. The rest of the state, I mean, you all know Texas has grown exponentially
30%
in the last 30 years, right? Victoria has grown. Victoria's lucky it hasn't gone backwards. Let's be honest. It's been so poorly mismanaged and the growth. And now the city's trying to float out a bill saying we can't put a data center within 500 yards of residences. You've got a whole Lone Tree Industrial Park where Caterpillar is, where the Victoria College Emerging Technology Center is. That's where they should be going.
Right.
If you're going to put them anywhere, put them there. Put them along the interstate. We've already ruined our interstate corridor with anything that would even attract people to stop in Victoria because of all the industrial businesses there. Put them out there. That's where they need
industrial businesses.
Yeah, all that too. That's where they need to go. But the fact that if this can be done properly, relatively regulated, and environmentally friendly, addressing all the concerns, Victoria could be a leader, and this could be the industry that embraces or that impacts and helps our tax base. Let's not run and hide from it like we did every other industry that came to Texas.
Right. Cody, I asked, and Heather Stewart did answer, and it's what I'm hearing in my headphones as well. She says you and I sound quote unquote normal, but Ash is tinny.
That's what I was trying to fix earlier when you belittled me.
Oh, yeah.
Is that any better? I tried to adjust the settings on this side.
I don't know.
If I made it
solid,
any better.
Cody, solid response. That gets you 2 minutes of yellow card dead time on the mic. Boom. Cody is gone, just like that. Okay. All right. President Trump stepped in and you're back. You got pardoned by the president.
209 million people registered voters in 2020.
So you had 290 million. I just 209 million. So
60% of our country's
over 75, 209, 155. I just don't believe that 75%. Yeah, you're right. 66% of our country is registered, and you're going to tell me that 75% of them voted? Folks, we have bond elections for $200 million and get 1,800 votes. I'm not buying it. I don't buy it. And I'm not saying, I'm not the guy that says I don't accept the results of the election. Maybe Biden got more votes, which, by the way, may or may not matter. As we know, Hillary Clinton has lost an election while winning the popular vote. But 155 million people voted when the most who'd ever voted before was like, 145, 146. I don't buy it. And I've
especially for Biden.
Right. Who's a clown. That's what gets me. Yeah.
Was never liked by anybody.
Andrew Alvarez said, I said they are coming, and you're right, Andrew. He says, correction, they are here. If we don't embrace them, China will. And the problem is then China, as you're running all this data, global data through these centers, China has access to all that data. Kevin Leininger says, I think the AI industry is being impacted by unconstitutional access to our private information, these flock cameras and more. Are the flock cameras, Cody, are flock like a flock of seagulls? And I ran, right into the war.
Nice one.
Right, first state Big Louise, Iranian war update. But a flock camera, is that the deal where they just put it on the light pole and they see what everybody that drives through?
Yes.
Prolific.
Yeah, businesses use them to see where license plates are coming from and cars are coming from, that sort of thing. They can
to
me,
that's
that's
public information, right? You're just gathering it. It's just public information. It's no different to me. And what could go wrong than having a camera in the outfield and seeing the signals of a catcher? I just don't think there's a problem with that. Yeah. Heather Kraft Stewart says, Linda Chris says, we listen on YouTube and he has a bit of an echo, but that's just how it sounds on a computer.
We're working on it. Once everything gets sorted out, I'll have a microphone and it'll be normal.
Andrew points out that people don't want Victoria to grow. I think that's an accurate representation of past mentality. I think this younger generation does want Victoria to grow.
And there's still too many people in the previous generation that are fighting that growth.
Listen to this. Ricky King, truck driver and apparent sound engineer wannabe, says, you're not going to get Ash to sound as good as you and Cody because he's not using a mic to speak into. So the mass is per usual, Cody.
Ricky King is a sound technician. He's
and they
brilliant.
they rush head like a fireman into the fray. They rush to defend Ash. It's not Ash's fault. It's not Ash. What if Ash just has
This is the first time anybody's ever said you sound good. Take it as a compliment.
What if you just have a tinny voice? I mean,
I might have.
But I mean, it's a trained, but yet
I'm going to work on the lighting too. So the lighting's a little better.
No, look, you look 20 years younger in that lighting. I mean, we can hardly see your fuzz beard
with the lights off.
Yeah. Greg Garcia asked a question, and I think this is it's tongue in cheek, right? He says, why do we continue to allow our city to be mismanaged by a bunch of special interest gatekeepers? It's ridiculous. But isn't that what we do as a nation? Don't we? I mean, I'm being sincere. You're going to tell me the best we can do in the great state of Texas, where there's only 2 United States senators, the best we can do is choose between a guy with more baggage than Melania Trump. You got a guy named Ken Paxton, who I've often championed was a great attorney general for Texas. I don't dislike Ken. I've met him. He's a nice guy. I want to slap that lazy eye, but at the same time, the best we can do is him. And the best the Dems can do is James Tallarico. Ash,
he kind of reminds me of Mike Myers in The Air Up There. That was a terrible movie, but he had a lazy eye and he kept going, this one, because everybody kept looking at the other one.
Other eye. I can see out of both, but look at the other one. The thing that gets me is that James Tallarico was emboldened to be who he is by the relative success, although it was a failure, of Beto O'Rourke. Beto opened the door for a even further left extremist idiot to walk through. And we laughed. You and I were guilty of it. My dad always told me, when I go back to being a little kid, back when homosexuality was kind of quiet and it certainly wasn't condoned or, honored as it is today with Pride Month and all that stupidity. My dad said, always be careful, son, when Soap was on with Billy Crystal, who is straight and married. Nowadays, you couldn't make the show Soap. Number one, it wouldn't be funny. It would be more of a documentary. And number two, they being the extreme left, would be up in arms, Ash, that we appropriated. Why didn't you get a gay man to play the gay man? Why do you have to let Billy Crystal do it? I guess because he's funny. But my dad said, always be careful. What you laugh at today, you accept tomorrow. And the day after that, you may be subservient to. And I look at these guys like Tallarico and the false prophet side of things that he is, and the fact that we laughed off Beto O'Rourke. That guy can't beat Ted Cruz, but he almost
Yeah,
did.
but here's the problem. I mean, you laughed at Beto, but what nobody's laughed at is communism. And what they found was Beto and Mamdani wrapped in the cloak of Jesus
Right.
and threw him out there on the left. That's who they've got here in Tallarico. They've got a communist who they think can provide sound bites like Beto could and charm people and appeal to the religious moderates that are sort of in the middle and aren't skewing right. But interestingly enough, there was a poll that I saw last week, and I'd have to find it again. But a lot of the Republicans that maybe weren't never Trumpers, but weren't fans of Donald Trump and skewed independent, they're starting to come back to the Republican Party because of the staunch communist stance of the Democrat Party. They've gone so far left, they don't even appeal to moderates anymore.
Ash, the Democrat Socialists used to make an appearance once in a while on MSNBC and places like that. They are now openly saying we need to just do away with the Senate. We don't need the Senate. It ought to be one man.
They want to get rid of the president as well, the Democrat Socialists of America. They want to get rid of the Senate, they want to get rid of the president, and they want to get rid of the Supreme Court.
We have listeners that will chime in.
Yeah, Mamdani will stand there and go, oh, yeah, the Constitution's great.
Yeah. Well, they'll tell you that it's great while they're taking away all your civil liberties. Greg Garcia says, you sound like Megatron. He thinks it's actually pretty cool. Greg Garcia clearly had that extra cup of caffeinated coffee this morning. Andrew Alvarez says, let me amend my statement. The voters in Victoria don't want Victoria to grow. And I'll go ahead and put a little asterisk by that and say, we historically have a very low voter turnout that allows the downtown douchery to go around and influence a few people. And the next thing you know, they can win the elections they want to win with under 2,000 votes. Ricky King thanks Cody for taking up for him as a sound engineer. Yeah. Tallarico's a store-bought hack, says Monty Howard. Pretty astute gentleman there. And you're right. P. Strauss says, I don't understand how anyone could vote for him listening to what he supports. I think what they're doing, I think the majority of the Tallarico platform is to say, pick me, I'm not Ken Paxton. And I think that's unfortunate. He brags about how much he, was in the House when all these tax cuts were made. He voted against all of them, but he wasn't there when A.J. Louderback and our great leadership voted for tax cuts. There's Norm Burgess checking in from Frisco.
Heather Stewart asked, she's curious to know what the actual increase in the tax base will be after construction of data centers is finished, because the construction is a flurry of activity. Well, what I think it is they're buying agricultural land, which pays almost nothing for taxes anyway, right?
Yeah.
Then you get them on the tax rolls, and as long as you're not giving them a bunch of incentives or tax abatements for 10 years, it should be assessed at a decent value. And I think that's where it comes from. That, like any project, the construction impact is 1 to 2 years. That's for any project. When we're going to see it depending on with the schools and the bond and all that construction activity. We're going to see a few years of increased sales tax revenue because of that. We're going to see some hotels filled up that maybe weren't, because some of the contractors are going to have to come from out of the region because they have expertise. But once that's done, then there's no tax value because they're schools.
So I have a question.
And unless, and we're not growing the economy, we're not growing the population base to add to the tax base just because we have better schools and new schools. That's a fallacy, in my opinion.
So a quick aside, and then back to a previous subject, and then I have a question for you. Greg Garcia, I think, accurately says the Democrat Party is eating each other alive. They're split into progressives and communists, with the communists rising and the progressives having no agenda. That's the truth. It's pretty interesting to watch them implode. So here's what I want to ask you. If, as I've heard little birds chirp, the next legislative session leads to some of this $50 billion surplus being gifted back, sent back to our school districts to cover the, I guess, M&O side of, is it M&O? It's not the INS, M&O side of their ledger sheet. If our school districts get money that they're not counting upon from the next legislative session, and that money can be applied to the agenda of improvement by VISD, you following me? They get money that provides them the opportunity, let's say, to tear down shields and haul it off, or to replace. Maybe it's very specifically given. You've got to use it for infrastructure such as HVAC needs. And let's just say, I'm making up a number, that we've got a $15 million budget line item in our $200+ million bond that we passed. Will the school district pay to do those things with the money they get from the state and reduce the money they pull from the bond? You're skeptical, right? You think they will, well, we've already got that money approved, so let's go ahead and use it. And I'm making this up, but let's use it to improve XYZ school location. Is that going to be a situation, Ash, where the school board once again says, we know better than you? And yes, we did get a windfall of cash here, but we're going to give it back to you with better facilities and better services. Or do they do the smart thing and return that money to the taxpayer? Which do you really think will happen?
I would like to think that this board would vote to return it to the taxpayer, because that's how most of them ran, as being fiscally conservative. But I've yet to meet a government that ever gives back any money that it gets with that doesn't come in some form of the promise, like you just said. Well, we'll give it back to you, but we'll improve our services. We'll hire more people to do this, blah, 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 blah. The money never, when's the last time you actually saw an actual tax cut? They can cut the tax rate all they want. They boost the appraisals.
They boost the value.
They get their pound of flesh regardless. I can't remember the last time I saw an actual tax cut where my taxes dropped.
No, you're not going to.
No. And this, aside from Donald Trump's tax cuts, that actually put more money in my pocket.
So Monty Howard, who's an architect and makes his living if I'm stereotyping, makes his living designing public facilities, municipalities, schools, that type of stuff. He says the money from the state is M&O money. It is restricted as to what they can spend on capital projects. Well, I ask you because I go back.
They could craft a bill though that says this money is for to ease, if the legislature did their job and crafted the bill as such, because there had so many of these bonds that passed and said, we're going to give a break. We've got money in the state budget. We're going to give it back to the school districts to ease that bond load. And the school districts then are going to reduce that bond capacity so that taxpayers don't have to pay much. That might be the only way it gets done, because I don't trust school districts enough based on past performance to actually return any of that money to the taxpayers. Because just look back to Harvey when we took it from 13 cents to 11 cents because we could.
Right. Yeah. We were allowed, and I'll get to that in a second. And we all know that school districts don't boost appraisals. The CAD does that. But the people that benefit from that are the people that also sit on the CAD board. I mean,
the mayor, the city council, the school board, the county. Yeah. All your taxing entities are on that board.
Absolutely. And they all, and the school district has representation on that board, and they all make money off of, it's like, well, gee, if the rate goes down, our taxes will go down. That's okay, because, the economy in Victoria is thriving. We got that new mattress store. So let's just raise everybody's property value. If you go back to Harvey, it was like, oh, these are dire times. And the state, in this one little emergency deal, allows a one time within a certain window, you can basically assess your taxpayers up to 13%. Our school board tried to tell us we did you a favor. We only went 11%. We gave you a 2% tax reduction as we took 11 cents more from you. Oh, but
after being made whole by the.
Well, I think it actually happened before, but the decision was at least made before. But then FEMA came in and wrote a check for the money they needed. And you know what they said? Oh, that's okay. We're just going to keep that and give it back to you in better services. Because you know what? We're the school board trustees. We know better than you how to raise your kid and spend your money. So what
you vote us in. Their attitude back then was you vote us in power to make the decisions for you.
Absolutely. And you know what? You're exactly right. You vote us into power to determine what's best for all. And these are the same idiots, the same hypocrite fools who say, why didn't all Texans get to vote on school vouchers? Why didn't we all get to vote on it? Well, why didn't we all get to vote on getting bent over and having 11 cents taken out of our wallet? We didn't get to vote on that. You fools just did it. And you know what it did? It ruined our district. Tell me I'm wrong, Ash. We were on the air when it happened. Didn't we say back then, you'll never pass another bond in Victoria? And sure enough, it took until Micah Patton got out there. I'll guarantee you.
Well, it took replacing everybody off that school board, basically, except for maybe Margaret Pruitt, right?
Who nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Everybody, Rick Jones, BJ Nelson, Micah Patton, everybody that was a tax and spend, Mickey Casella, everybody that was a tax and spend disciple is off that board. It took 9 years.
Yeah,
for it to get to this point where a bond was passed because of the damage they did with their attitude and
smugness.
And that smugness. Thank you.
They were arrogant
people. Absolutely.
Now, Monty Howard says, my idea is to lock the taxable base at the initial purchase price in order to raise revenue. In order to raise revenue, taxing entities would be forced to go to the voters for any revenue increases they want. What that would do is allow you, let's say you buy a house for $350,000. The next year they can't make it 425, 550, and you feel like you're at a bad auction. But the problem is because they tax you, and nobody really gets Caleb Shaw, but nobody really else gets too upset about the fact that they tax you on unrealized gains.
Yeah,
And
it is a tax on unrealized gains.
Yeah, they
Well,
tax you
here-
to the point that you don't ever make any money. People say it all the time. I made $150,000 on my house. No, you didn't, because you paid $178,000 in taxes on it.
I laughed at this last appraisal when it came in. I had just bought the house.
So you
They
know what the
appraised
market is,
I know exactly what the market is. The market is what somebody will pay for.
right?
They
And
had
you
my
did.
house appraised at almost $90,000 more than I actually paid for it. They had no clue. They hadn't
Yep.
set foot in it. Make that make sense. Make
The
that
thing
make
is,
sense.
they keep moving it around, right? It's like we're taxing it for 90,000 more, but we're upping the exemption on your homestead by roughly $90,000. So you're still paying the same taxes you always paid. That is what happened. So we are all subject to that. I tell you what, we need to take a break. I'm going to do it real quick, Cash, because I don't want you to go anywhere. By the way, you can still chime in as we go. Folks, White Wing Materials. We've just started really pumping up White Wing Materials because everybody asks me all the time, what are you doing? What's your yard? 21-7-14 blend from Deerland Feed. Man, where can I get a good load of topsoil? Well, you can dial 920 sand. Now's not a bad time. If you put down a load of dirt, level up your yard. Many of us live in homes that were sodded, but they were like checkerboard sod. And if you're not careful, you've got low spots in your yard. If you mow it just right, you can feel a bump as you go over the former pieces of sod. White Wing. They'll also counsel you on maybe you need some half and half. Maybe your drainage problems aren't great and you need to add a little sand to your situation. White Wing Materials, 920 sand. Cheswick Furniture, we say it every day. Dawn says spice it up. What do you want me to do to make it better? The best furniture, the best deals, the best selection, the ability to customize your furniture. I'm not talking about going in and spending $8,000 on a sofa. I'm talking about saying, man, I like that, but I wish it was in gray. Bobby Leon and his team will help you get what you want. Get in and see why you just always do better at Chestnut. Palace Bingo, where friends meet friends. Get out there. Go to the L&L Grill. Have a big old smash burger, some fries, crinkle fries, ketchup, cold drinks. It's great. Help raise money for 7 local charities and maybe some for yourself. USA Foundation Repair. Cody, have you ever had any reason to deal with USA Foundation Repair?
I have not, but I've heard great things about them.
You will. If you live in this area, you'll need Charlie Garcia, the singing cowboy. He can come in and help you level, especially your pier and beam house. That's simple. They just jack it up, put some shims under it, and it's good to go. Easy deal. Reach out to them at 578-HOME. Vera Cruz Restaurant. It's pre-Caldo Wednesday, Tuesday. They don't call it Taco Tuesday. They call it Enchilada Casserole Tuesday. Get by Vera Cruz today. Get a enchilada casserole that'll feed your whole family and your neighbors. A couple of bags of salad, everybody will poop. Everybody will have a great, great day. Allen's Wrecker Service, 578-6300. Allen's your go-to tow-to. Reach out to Alan, Janet, and little Alan, 40-ish, Miller, who can help you with all your towing needs, a jump, car problems. They come out and basically perform as first responders. Secure the scene, make sure you're safe, put a 75-ton crane between you and danger on the highway. Reach out to Allen's Wrecker Service at 578-6300. Went Services and Went Electrical for all your electrical needs. Reach out to Went. They do great work. They're a preferred generator dealer. They can do a turnkey installation for you. Call them today. And then, of course, Ash, This is going to work out good for you as you travel. Par Vita Wellness and the Vita Cafe. You're back with me if you'd like to engage your audience with your eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
I'm looking up a story.
Are you? You're such a frontline reporter, a journalist of the top.
I know,
Highest.
I rely on others to do this stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. Our extensive staff, Par Vita, really wanting to welcome you in. What do you have for me? I have several things to share.
Yeah, a couple of things that I think were interesting. This one closer to home in Calhoun County, and I guess Calhoun County ISD looking at closing Port O'Connor Elementary School.
Yeah, so they're going to take the kids from Port O'Connor and send them to Seadrift, and they're going to take the junior high kids from Seadrift and send them to Port Lavaca. See, that's what they're going to do.
Port O'Connor Elementary has an A rating from the TEA, apparently.
Well, there's
Chris
like
Mapp did a huge post on this, and it's really interesting because another gentleman named Rex Griffith went through all of the expenditures from the elementary school. Apparently, they're closing this because they have a $4 million shortfall or something down that way, and they think this is a way to get that. According to Rex Griffith, their spending for the last 2 years didn't even amount to 1% of that $4 million shortfall in Calhoun County ISD.
Yeah. How do you have a $4 million? Oh, okay. So what you're saying is Port O'Connor ISD or Port O'Connor School District, their schools are part of the Port Lavaca ISD.
Part of Calhoun County, yeah.
And here's what you do, Ash. This is what everybody does.
And I guess they closed it, according to Linda Christ. I didn't see that.
You close the school that only cost you $50 a week because it's symbolic and it doesn't affect anybody in your voter base. That's why you do it. I mean, half of Port O'Connor doesn't vote in Port O'Connor. They don't live there. They live here.
Yeah.
So the 50 people that actually vote in Port O'Connor are inconsequential in school elections. So the school decides, well, that school, we've got a $4 million shortfall and it doesn't cost $4 million a year to run the whole school. You're not saving any money by closing the school.
No.
There you have it. Not to mention,
I'd like to know I want to know what happens to those kids who leave an A-rated elementary school, because we all know Calhoun ain't an A-rated high school. What's happening in between?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so here's what's going to happen. Those kids will go, and it may not be bad for them to go to Seadrift. I mean, Seadrift, I'm certain, is a bigger school than Port O'Connor. But that is a problem. And yeah, but there's not that many kids. There can't be that many kids at Port O'Connor Elementary.
But I mean, there's not much to get from Port O'Connor. I mean, you're kind of in if there's any, I don't know. You've got a small community, and to close a school just doesn't seem to make sense, but whatever.
Yeah, we had one question that said, that likes to stab at my industry, says, guess the insurance companies would be happy to insure your home for what you paid for it and not your current cost of repairs. No, because if the price of lumber goes up, the insurable value of it. So, there's several values for your home. There's what the market will pay for it. A lot of us look at our tax appraisal. You hear it all the time. I'll tell you what, somebody offers me what they're taxing me on that hut, and I'll sell it tomorrow, and so that's one. So there's what the tax man says your home is worth. There's what the market says your home is worth. And then there's what the actual bricks and sticks of your home are actually worth. I have successfully argued on behalf of some of my higher wealth clients. I've got several people that I insure that live like in Highland Park in Dallas, where a guy's got 5,000 square feet and the house is worth $9 million. Well, the insurance company wants to insure it for $9 million. And I go, let's see it, 5,000 square foot. So you're telling me that it's worth $1,800 a foot? If it burns down, Not to mention, see, when you raise that value to $9 million and you've got a 2% deductible, that's $180,000. So you have a $50,000 kitchen fire, you collect nothing. Sorry, doesn't meet your deductible. That's how the insurance company forces you to self-insure your stuff. When they raise, for example, your deductible on your home from 2% to 3%, they don't raise the premium. In fact, they tell you, hey, you're in luck. Your premium went down $20 because we have to go to a higher deductible. They just got you to eat 50% more on your next deductible. It's terrible. It's tragic. But the cost to rebuild something versus what it's worth versus what the tax man says for it, none of those things are even remotely relative.
I'm paying, and I'm consciously and knowingly paying for the replacement value of my home ahead of time.
The replacement value of the structure does not take into consideration location, but your CAD appraisal does. I built 2,500 square feet in the middle of Victoria Country Club. It is inherently worth more than if I build 2,500 square feet on the corner of a county road out in the middle of nowhere. Because
depending on your surname and your position in this community.
Absolutely. So Monty Howard echoes correctly with common sense. What does that have to do with government and quasi-government taxing unrealized value? The government shouldn't do that.
Speaking of which, the Trump administration is still quietly going about its Doge promise. Since March of 2025, and New York Post reporting this morning, 4,900 payments that would have gone to people who are dead were snagged by the Treasury Department, totaling almost $100 million. Just in the last year plus.
Yeah. Jonathan Williams with a solid question. Wouldn't Port O'Connor properties be a huge part of the Calhoun tax base? Yes. And those folks still pay taxes, but there's not enough voters to matter. There's a lot of people here that have $750,000 bay houses, but they don't vote in.
Well, not only that, there's not enough of them down there to really make an impact on all of Calhoun County's
right.
taxes, probably.
The ne'er-do-wells are still saying, well, insurance charges for unrealized value. No, they don't. They charge for current. I've seen rates go down based on the price of lumber. For example, coming in from Canada, when that drives the price of lumber down, we see an easing in the premiums on insurance. It's totally different and totally unrelated to the CAD. It's just common sense. At the end of the day, by the way, Ash, Trump announcing yesterday, I think it's somewhat retaliatory in exchange for the Canadians going and making such a big boastful claim about their newfound relationship with the Saudis. The timing is suspect to me. But Trump announcing that while he's not going to put a tariff on energy and certain other things, he will be putting a huge tariff on alcohol. What else was it, Cody? Alcohol. Why don't I just go to, let's see if I can go to Canadian goods starting July 20th. He says that Canada has discriminated against American dairy, alcohol, and automobile exports. So he's going to put an additional 50% tariff on these items, but is delaying that until he's delaying that like 2 weeks, I think. He's basically giving Canada a chance to negotiate that.
We've gone through that dairy thing, and we've gone through that dairy thing in the past, and it's so inconsequential. We produce more milk in this country and in North America that can actually be consumed. So a lot of it ends up getting dumped because it would go bad. You can only make so much cheese, butter, and milk, right? But anyway, we've gone through that.
Kathleen Leininger says we need to eliminate all property taxes. And it's that beautiful romantic thing that it's inherently American to own your home and you shouldn't have to pay taxes. And here's the problem. I'd love to have no homeowners tax. I would even be willing to pay up to a certain amount, 15, 18% in sales taxes in order to make that happen. But just as we talk about the CAD backing into your new value, which is what they do, somewhere in Austin, there's a guy that says, well, we need to raise X number of $1 billion. And here's the gross sales in this state. And if we take out food necessities, because we don't want to tax those, then what does the tax rate need to be to generate the same amount of money? They're not saying, it'd be ideal if they came in and said, we're going to raise your taxes from 8.25% to 15%, and we're going to make it work. We would all go, great. I don't have homeowners taxes anymore. That's great. But they're not going to do that. They're going to come in and you're not going to like it. It's going to be 23, 25, 28%. And you're going to go, oh, man. So here's the problem. I'm not going to spend as much money because it's just too expensive. So what do then? They raise it to 35% to make up for the shortfall. And the next thing you know, you're going 50-50 with the government. And nobody's motivated by 50-50 with the government. And that's just the way it is, because that number.
That's why they're getting out of New York. That's why they're getting out of Quebec. That's why they're getting out of most parts of Canada, is because you're paying close to 50% of taxes in those jurisdictions.
Right. And I mean, when you see stupid in the comments, just doubling down, all these people can't be wrong. All of them can't be wrong. Folks, we've reached the top of the hour. I hope that you have a blessed day. I hope those of you that are ignorant, enlighten yourself. I hope those of you that are irrational, medicate yourself. But just remember, as we roll forward, stupid is forever, and it will always be among us. God bless you, folks. I hope you have a great day. Ash, I'm giving you exit screen right, and we are out of here. Bye, folks.